Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well, and I haven't seen you for a bit, so I thought I would come along and do a little video. And today I thought I would do one on how to write a book. So what's the process of writing a book? It really differs, of course, depending on what type of book you would like to write. So if you're writing something factual, there would be a lot of research involved. I do write things that are factual, and they involve a lot of research, a lot of referencing to different other articles and books and things. So that's one kind of book. Then we have fiction books. So fiction books, if they are set in an earthly setting. So how do we go about writing them, and why do we write them in the first place? So we write them in the first place because there's a story to tell. So if you think about everything you watch, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's like your favorite drama on some other app on the TV, they speak to you, and all those kind of things, entertainment, so important for our well-being because they fill us up and they help us to get on with our normal lives and give us energy to do that, and give us reference points as well, so we see things and we can relate. Sometimes even if they don't mean to, quite often they do mean to, they act as guidance or advice. So writing a fiction book, so if it is set in earthly terms, a really good place to start is the truth. So the truth doesn't have to be exactly what's happened to you in your life, but you can base your book on things that have been meaningful to you in your life. So if you've come across experiences where you thought, wow, you learned a lot from that, or it just felt to you like it gave you some sort of massive realization, then the chances are somebody else hearing that story, they are going to feel the same. So in terms of style of writing, everybody is different. So what I would recommend is to go with what fits you and not worry too much about rules and boundaries of whatever literature might say as being the case. You know, it has to be written like this or it has to be written like that. I've heard that there are formulae that people use to write. I wouldn't say that you need those formulae if you're writing your own book, because you want to write something unique. How else will it touch people if what you write is not unique? Why would they be interested? And the other thing is rules and boundaries that we have in things like literature, even words, they change over time. They've been changing over time since words first began, and they are still doing that today. So in my time, we've pretty much lost the Latin plurals that we used to have, and that has changed, and that was shocking to me when people started using different plurals to what we had in the English language. And as I knew it, because the English language, of course, has been evolving like every other language for a very, very long time. But that's okay. And sometimes you feel the need to even invent words that maybe don't quite exist. And that's okay too, because there's nothing to say that everything we want to describe is already harnessed in words that are available to us. So writing a fiction book, good idea to go on things that you know and things that have been special to you, but also a good idea to take it to wherever your own personal evolution has taken you to, and that'll take people there as well. And so a little bit of advice about how to write fiction books. Of course, there's many other concepts, and this is just one take on it. So we have other types of books, like fantasy books. I tend to write fantasy books. So where does that come from? It comes from our imaginations, our hearts, our links to wherever our ideas come from, things that might crop up in your mind. You might not necessarily know where that came from, but you see it like a vision, or you feel it, or you hear it, or inside yourself, not with your physical senses, but something else within. Where, if I give you an example, there's one scenario that I have in a forthcoming book where it's something that visited me a lot, and I don't know to this day where this vision, as it were, or the scenes would come from, but they would just come. And I never intended on putting those into a book. They are fantasy. They're not earthly things. They're something that exists somewhere beyond the earth. And it feels very real to me, and I didn't know why I would get recurrent visions, I guess, of these scenes. And eventually I was writing a book once where it just, this ended up winding itself into the book. And that's very interesting because it's not the main plot of the book, but it became a really major part of the book in its own way, but a really, really key part of the book. And perhaps that's why I was being given this imagination. So I wasn't imagining it actively, but it was a creative thing that was happening inside me that I hadn't seen anywhere. I hadn't come across it before anywhere. And perhaps it was coming to me so that I could share this concept. But I will tell you what's happened since I wrote about it in the book is that I've only come across it once, but I've actually come across something that I saw that was simply a painting that someone had done. And that painting, to me, it's not exactly the same as what I envisioned, but it's extremely close, and it really harnesses the feeling and the meaning of what I've written in the book. So we often hear about this, like inventors, different parts of the world, two different inventors came up with the same invention at the same time. So or two different people came up with a piece of music at the same time. I actually even have friends that this has happened to, where somebody else has written a piece of music at the same time as they have. It's happened to me very interestingly, and I'll maybe save that story for a different time. But it's a very incredible story. You wouldn't believe, if somebody wrote about it in a book, I would think, oh, that's pure fantasy. But truth can be stranger than fiction. So our fantasy novels and things, they of course come from our creativity, our imagination. But it could be that there may be plenty of people out there who are being visited by a similar feeling or a vision, and maybe people don't necessarily talk about it. Sometimes these things come to you in the middle of the night and you forget every day you forget that has happened. You only remember it when it happens at 3 a.m. in the morning or something. But then if you do come across, like I came across the picture, you come across a book maybe that tells the story of it, and someone reads it and thinks, whoa, my inner world correlates with this. And that is very powerful. So we have our outer world, which is where fiction, ordinary fiction, can come from. But then we have our inner worlds, and maybe that's where fantasy novels link into, and that we can relate that way. So writing a fantasy book is linking into our inner world. So for fantasy books, I would say if you end up getting into bed at night and then suddenly you're just visited by a storm of ideas, there's no point in thinking, I'll remember them in the morning, because you won't. I can pretty much guarantee, unless you're completely different to me and many people that I know. So it's good to have a notebook handy by your bed. Nowadays, a lot of people don't use notebooks. They have their phones handy anyway. But if you have some way of recording your ideas, you don't have to write them out in full, because if you did, you might not get any sleep. But if you at least record your ideas, then you can then keep them, file them somewhere that you are going to find them again, because you may have ideas for years and they may only turn into a book many, many years down the line, the combination of ideas. So I haven't given you any technical recommendations or guidance on how to actually write a book, the process of writing a book. I've talked more about where the books can come from in this episode. So I will call this episode How to Write a Book Part 1, because I will do a part 2 where I'll go into more detail about the technical writing of a book. So either which way, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I absolutely love coming to see you all, and I get a lot of comments from amazing people who just bring complete joy and, you know, a lot of love into my life. I look at the comments and I just see dozens of hearts and things, and that means the world to me. It's just so beautiful, and thank you so much for doing that. I do try and reply to everybody. I don't always get a chance because I don't have the time or strength. Quite often, like all of us, we can be very challenged with those things. But I appreciate it so much, and I love you too. And look after yourself, and I'll be back again soon, and I wish you a good day. Bye.